Sally McManus, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So just briefly on this issue, should Anthony Albanese join his counterparts in taking this step?
Look, we're a movement for peace, David, and we've been calling for peace there since the horrendous events on October the 7th and what's happened since then. The number of innocent people now being, killed is in the tens of thousands, and now people are being starved. So we think it's urgent that our government does recognise Palestine as a state. And, we need to do this urgently, and the reason is because people are starving.
So do it now.
Children are starving, David. We should do it now.
All right. Let's turn to the government's reform roundtable that's coming up in just over 2 weeks. What are the proposals you're putting forward, particularly in the area of tax?
Well, one of the biggest issues in terms of living standards for younger people in Australia is the issue of housing affordability. It's like the number one issue, and we need to address it. Young people should have the same aspirations as the generations before them, and at the moment they don't. It's been wiped out by the fact that the housing prices have gone up twice the rate of wages over the last 25 years, twice the rate. Now, supply is part of that issue, and we've got proposals around that, but we also think that the tax system has to change too, because that has fuelled those housing prices and taken it out of reach for young people.
So are you talking about negative gearing and capital gains tax breaks?
So we're going to take a proposal that both negative gearing and capital gains tax should be reformed, that they should be limited to one investment property and grandfathered for the existing arrangements for 5 years to allow people to adjust.
So sorry, for 5 years you can
keep current arrangements.
But after that you can only have one negatively geared property?
Yes, and so you can have as many investment properties as you want, but in terms of the tax benefit, limit that to one. The issue isn't, ordinary Australians that are trying to get ahead and have an investment property. That's not the issue. The issue is that a small number of investors, and we're talking about 1% of investors, own 25% of the investment properties, and that has been driving or fuelling the housing prices. And so I don't think we ever intended even this to happen as a result of these tax measures, but this is where we're at. And unless we change it, working people can't live where they work, they can't live where they grew up. It is causing an enormous amount of pressure for people, and a really disturbing thing is that a study in New South Wales said that there will be no grandchildren in Sydney because people between the ages of 30 and 40 can't afford to live there.
What about capital gains tax? What's your proposal on that front?
Exactly the same, that capital gains tax and negative gearing.
So 5 years
as it is, and limited to one investment property.
After the 5-year mark.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's a long history of debate around both of these tax measures. Labor in 2019 under Bill Shorten took changes to, slightly different, but changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax to that election and lost. And since then, Anthony Albanese as leader has said, well, that was the verdict of the Australian people. And he took that position at the election earlier this year as well. Would it be a broken promise for him to now shift on these issues?
Well, I just say that we've got to bite the bullet. Otherwise we're just saying, too bad, young people, you're not going to be able to ever own a home. Forget about even thinking about it. Since 2019, the problem's just got worse. It's going to continue to get worse. Unless the government's brave enough to do something about it, we are just abandoning those generations, and we think that's fundamentally wrong.
Have you done any work, any modelling on the impact this would have on the rental market in particular? Because the criticism of, or the argument for not doing something, for not touching those rules, is that it would drive up rental prices and limit rental stock.
That's why you have to increase supply as well, and the government's already got a whole lot of measures with that, and we've got other proposals too. We think the government should get behind modular housing. It's quicker and it's faster and it's cheaper in terms of producing those houses. Also, the rules around superannuation funds investing in housing are too limiting, and that's holding back investment in housing as well. We'd also be open to sensible proposals around speeding up approvals. Like, you've got to also increase the supply of housing alongside changing the tax measures.
But what would this raise in terms of tax revenue if these limits that you're talking about were put in place on negative gearing and capital gains?
We think around 1.5 billion a year. We think around that, maybe a bit more.
Okay, so you'd be talking, what, 6 billion or so over the forward estimates in tax saving for this, but it would obviously hurt those investors who are currently in the market after the 5-year mark. Is there any work done on what the impact would be for them?
Well, I mean, people will have time to adjust and to make decisions they want to. Part of the problem is that we've been keeping a whole lot of capital in housing, and it's not those people's fault. Like, they've done that because it's worked for them and they've made smart decisions around that. But it's also meant that capital's not being invested in areas that are going to increase productivity, like Australian businesses and other ways it can be invested. At the moment, it's all been locked up in housing, and so that's another part of the productivity question.
The other tax measure that Labor under Bill Shorten took to that election was on franking credits. Is that something you're saying Labor should come back to now? No,
it's not one of the proposals we're putting forward, but we are putting forward other proposals. Working people in Australia pay, our tax, our fair share of tax. You and I, David, pay our fair share of tax. We want to see everyone pay their fair share, and at the moment there's too many loopholes and too many ways that the very wealthy can get out of tax.
So what are you suggesting should happen there?
So quite a lot of measures here, because we've also got a problem in terms of really big, extremely profitable companies not paying tax as well. Go through the list of them, everyone from Netflix to News Corp, right through to Glencore, the insurance companies, all of those, very profitable, not paying tax. So we would say this, the tax measures that should be brought in is for family trusts. We think that there should be a minimum 25% paid on disbursements. So a minimum family trusts have become a way of people basically hiding their money and getting out of paying tax. But also say for millionaires, or people, not millionaires, people who had an income of $1 million in a year should pay a minimum tax rate of 25%. We think that's more than reasonable, given that your average worker pays more than that. At the moment, there's 91 people had an income of that amount, pay no tax at all, David, and that it's just not on. And also, got a situation where the nurses of Australia pay more tax than the oil and gas companies, and so we'd also propose a 25% on the revenue from gas exports in Australia.
Well, it brings us to what the Productivity Commission's put forward ahead of this roundtable just the other day in relation to company tax, and just to broadly explain it, it would lower the company tax rate from 30% to 20% for all businesses, all companies with a turnover under $1 billion, but then also introduce this 5% turnover tax on their cash flow for every business, large and small. So the biggest businesses would face a higher tax rate. It sounds like you're open to this idea.
Thing is, the big problem we've got is that Australia is dominated by a relatively small number of companies in a small number of industries, and they are very, very profitable. And they don't want to pay more tax. They yell and they scream every time there's any proposal, even though 31% of companies aren't paying any tax at the moment. And what they've been doing is prioritising short-term profits over investing in productivity, in capital, or in research, or in people. And so that's got to change. And the only way to change that, we think, is to make sure that whatever proposals come forward lead to investment in things like capital and research. And this proposal is something we will look at in more detail, because it does do those things. And all the calls to cut company tax in the end will hurt ordinary people, because that's money out of Medicare, money out of education.
But it's, the Productivity Commission makes the point that we need to lower that company tax rate to encourage investment, dynamism in the economy.
No, we don't.
Well, this is, I just want to show you, this is from the Productivity Commission's submission. At the moment, in yellow, is where our company tax rate is compared to the developed world. We've got one of the highest rates. If it's lowered to 20%, we get one of the lowest rates in the OECD. Do you accept that this is an important way to encourage investment?
See there, Ireland's basically, a tax haven. And that doesn't benefit the people of Ireland, doesn't benefit them at all. There's no evidence whatsoever that lower tax rates are going to lead to more investment. And why would it? At the moment, these companies have got very significant profits, and they're choosing not to invest. They're choosing not to put it into a better, capital, more machines, different, research, and all their people. What, we're going to give them more money and expect they're going to change their behaviour?
Just before we move on from tax, though, your priority is clearly coming back to where we started: negative gearing, capital gains tax, these housing tax reforms. Do you expect that this Albanese government would be bold enough to go back to something that's burnt Labor in the past?
Well, it's also the other tax measures we raised as well, so it's not just those. We want to see living standards rising, and they're not going to rise unless we address housing affordability. It's number one issue for working people.
But
it's eating into everything.
You know the people in this caucus and these ministers and this Prime Minister. Do you get the sense that they're going to be brave enough to do these measures?
Listen, we're going to go and argue it. We're going to advocate for it. In the end, I guess the government will make their decisions based on what they think is in the national interest. We would say it is in the national interest.
What if it's an agenda for the next term, beyond the next election?
Well, we'll just see it become more and more unaffordable over that period of time.
I want to ask you about artificial intelligence as well. This is going to be an issue at the roundtable too, and it's a technology that's already upon us and is going to be more and more part of our lives and part of our economy. Jim Chalmers argues that artificial intelligence will completely transform our economy. Every aspect of life will be impacted. Does the union movement accept that there will be some jobs that need to be made redundant and others created as part of this revolution?
Well, of course that's going to happen. What we want to stop is mass job losses just being imposed on people. Every good company, and I'd say it's in their interest to sit down with their workers to talk about their plans and how it is going to affect them, and then negotiate with them what that will mean. So it might be that people choose to take a redundancy, but it might be that the company says, well, we're going to invest in training you up. When you do that, you give people the safeguards and the comforts to embrace AI. If you don't do that, you're going to have a situation where there's going to be a very big depth of fear and also resistance to the use of AI. And AI, unlike other technologies, needs humans to engage with it to make it work. So it's in the interest of all of us that this is a shared thing, and that means you can't just dispose of workers.
We had an example just in recent days of the Commonwealth Bank, which does employ nearly 50,000 people. It confirmed it made 45 call centre workers redundant. They're being replaced by AI, and a spokesperson for the bank said many of our people have taken up the upskilling and reskilling pathways made available for them to continue their careers at the bank. Is that the right approach?
Well, this is the point, isn't it? If you negotiate with your employees and you're honest with them and saying, listen, actually, we are going to replace your jobs, but what we're going to guarantee to you is that we're going to invest in training you up to do other roles. And if you're a bank, there's plenty of other roles that you can do. So then people are going to be less worried about it. That's not exactly what the Commonwealth Bank did, unfortunately.
But do you need a new authority to police this stuff? And the government doesn't sound too keen on this idea.
Well, the thing is the issue of AI is about workers, but not just about workers. There's lots of other issues. Obviously, there's issues about pornography and how that works. There's also about data theft for creative industries like media, people having their data and what they've created being stolen.
Sure, and they're all legitimate concerns. They're very legitimate concerns. But do you accept that, again, if Australia puts too many rules and regulations around the rollout of AI in place, investment's going to go elsewhere where they can advance a lot faster?
Well, it's the tech bro billionaires that absolutely want, and Donald Trump, no regulation whatsoever. I tell you what, I don't trust them, and that I think that we've got to put the interests of people first, not the interests of their profits.
Sally McManus, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.